All right, welcome back into the Yappin Football Podcast. If you're new to the channel, because we're putting these on a new channel, welcome in. If you came over from the other channel, welcome back. Still Mehl, of course, joined by Javon from Stats Over Feelings. And today we're going to be talking about the 9-0-2 teams in the NFL and how much they should be panicking. We're going to kind of give it a rating on a scale of 1 to 10, and then we're going to talk about the team. So all the timestamps will be in the description, but let's hop right into this, Javon. The Cincinnati Bengals, 0-2 for, again, I believe I read a stat that in their last 5 seasons, they've started off in a combined 1-9. So this is not a team that starts off hot by any stretch of the imagination. They continuously start off slow. And I'll just throw it up to you on a scale of 1 to 10, man. How worried are you about the Cincinnati Bengals right now?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to probably say 8.5. I'll give them a solid 8.5. I'm not going to give them a 9, but This season does feel a little bit different than all the other seasons, man. You could argue that this defense is the worst defense they've had since, Joe Burrow's rookie year or the year, Joe Burrow, the year they went to the Super Bowl. You can argue that. You can argue that this is the worst the run game has ever been since before Joe Mixon was on the team. And they still don't even have the number 2 receiver practicing yet, really, for real. So this season just feels a little bit different. So I would definitely be a little bit more alarmed than I would in the past years.
So I'm glad we started with the Bengals because I disagree here. I'm at a 4.5, 5 out of 10. Listen, the Patriots lost. That one really stinks, and that's bad. But to see this team bounce back against Kansas City and be in a very competitive game kind of showed me that this is still some of the same old Bengals team that we do know. We do still have Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor on the offense. Jamar Chase is there, and once they get T. Higgins back, you won't be able to double cover bracket Jamar Chase for an entire game anymore. You have to respect T. Higgins. And Yo Shavas was fine to decent. Gesicki's okay. I would agree with you that there are some alarms that are going off for me in terms of this team's ability to contend for a Super Bowl. The run defense is tragic. Through 2 weeks, we've seen them consistently get beat up. And, they kind of got a lucky break that Isaiah Pacheco got hurt at the end of that game because he was averaging 4.7 yards per carry against them. Ramondre Stevenson ended that game because they just couldn't get a tackle. That's very concerning, their inability to get the other team off the field at the end of close games when they're just running the ball out. And I think not having Joe Mixon is really going to sting for this team come December, January football. I mean, I think we've seen early on in this NFL season that the run game matters, especially if you're one of those teams trying to compete and be at an elite level. It doesn't mean you have to have a top 5 back in the sport, but you need to be able to run the ball at least at a top 15 level, especially when these games start getting colder, man. The Chiefs got Pacheco, the Ravens, who we'll talk about, they have Derrick Henry, the Packers with Josh Jacobs, the Eagles with Saquon, the 49ers with CMC, the Bills with James Cook. These are real running backs, and Cincinnati just does not have that. Maybe they could be buyers at the deadline, maybe not, but that's the real concern for me. But in terms of the Bengals missing the playoffs, I don't think so. A 4th place schedule, I don't. My alarms aren't going off for them. This is something this team is used to doing as well.
That is true. I just feel like the odds are stacked against them, man. You look at all the red flags from any team that's had a heartbreaking loss or that's 0-2 right now. And the Bengals match that description, man. I know they've won against adversity before, but when I look at this team, man, you can't run the ball. You can't stop the run. How are you going to control the game? Jamar Chase is not the same when T. Higgins isn't there. That's just a fact. He's not the same. T. Higgins plays okay when Jamar Chase isn't there. You can say that, but the other way around, Jamar Chase is not the same player because now he is getting double teamed, like you said. So with that being said, who's going to step up in this offense? And then, like I said, you can't catch the run. You can't stop the run. You can't run the ball. Nobody expected Joe Mixon to be missed this much on this team. Nobody could have expected that. DJ Reader loss, also a very big deal, and also in the hardest division in the entire NFL right now. Or maybe it may not even be the hardest division no more, but it's definitely top 3 hardest division right now currently. So I just think the odds are stacked against them at this point, man. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, the odds are certainly stacked against them. I think some of my lack of concern also comes from the fact that the Ravens are 0-2, and I feel like the Ravens have a tougher path ahead of them, which we'll talk about them in just a second. On the Jamar Chase situation, it's tough to gauge, and we'll see kind of where we're at perhaps over the next 2 weeks. But week one, he wasn't practicing. You're up against Rod Mayo, who learned
Yeah.
defense from Bill Belichick. And then week two, you play Kansas City, who traditionally they also follow a similar Belichickian model of let's take out the opposing team's best player. That's what they did against week one in Baltimore with Mark Andrews. And then they did it week two with Jamar Chase. So I think he's gotten some kind of crap end of the stick matchups here.
Yeah.
Even if T. Higgins doesn't play this upcoming week, they play against Washington. If you can, I mean, Malik Neighbors just had just tore them up. And the week before, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin tore them up. Jamar Chase should have a big week loading. And I think the Bengals should have a win at home against the Commanders and kind of get right. Now,
wait, what's that?
No, you're good.
No, I was going to say, like you said before, the Ravens do have that first place schedule. And we know that the back half of the Steelers schedule is absolutely brutal. Yeah. So that's one thing that the Bengals really do have going for them, and then the Browns, or who knows what's going on with that quarterback situation, who's going to even be starting quarterback for them come week 8 or 9 anyways.
Yeah, I don't have faith in the Browns.
So you just got to pray T. Higgins comes back, because sooner or later, because every game matters in this conference for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of this conference, let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to be honest, man. On a scale of 1 to 10, my worry for this team, I'm sitting at an 8.5 right now. And that's just purely out of respect for Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh and the winning culture that they have. But the offensive line is bad. The defense, we're seeing some effects that I was worried that we were going to see with this team. Mike McDonald gone. 7 key rotational or starter level pieces from this defense gone. They couldn't stop Gardner Minshew in the second half. He was dotting them up all up, and then they couldn't convert on offense because of that offensive line either, man. Yeah. And they're 0-2. And unlike the Bengals, they do have a first place schedule. Their next 3 games are at Dallas, home for Buffalo, and at Cincinnati. Like, there's a world where the Ravens start off 0-5. And
a couple games after that too. They play the Buccaneers, are a tough game. Yeah. Like, who knows what could happen there.
They play Philly later this year too. I know that. So it's not an easy schedule by any means for Baltimore. And this is why early on in the season, I predicted this team to go 10-7. And people killed me for that. They said that the Baltimore Ravens were the best team in the NFL last year, the MVP. They're not going to go 10-7. You're crazy. They're going to win this division, winning 14, 15 games. And I said, whoa, dude. Like, progression is not linear in the NFL, especially when you lose that many key pieces. 3 starting offensive linemen, 7 key rotational players, and your defensive coordinator. That's just not an easy thing to recover from. And we're seeing it hit the Ravens early on. Where are you at 1 to 10 for this team? I'm concerned.
10.
Okay.
Yeah, bro, it's a 10. Like, they have the first place schedule. Not to mention that the defense is in shambles. I would have never in a million years thought the Ravens would lose a game where the other team doesn't even rush for 40 yards. How does that even happen? So your defense is in shambles. This offense isn't designed to beat anybody in a shootout. Lamar Jackson, he's going to play hero ball. How long can he sustain that without getting hurt? He's losing weight every single year. When he starts the season for the last, year or 2, he's been losing weight, coming in a little bit slimmer. How much can he keep up? This hero ball play style, he's not built like Josh Allen. He doesn't even have the arm strength of Josh Allen. I don't trust this offense. I don't trust this run game, because they don't know what their identity is. They try to give Derrick Henry the ball, and then the last 2 or 3 drives of last game, he barely touched the ball. What was that about? You're playing the Raiders, man. Run the ball. I get it. They have one of the defensive player of the year candidates in Max Crosby, but you got to stick to your identity, man, when the game is close like that. And I just feel like this team doesn't know what their identity is. You give Isaiah Likely all these targets week 1, week 2. He's really a no-show for the most part. Then you try to Zay Flowers. You basically went away from him last game the entire second half. I think he only had like 2 or 3 targets.
He was like retweeting posts saying that too. I mean, like, it's not a great look. But
Exactly. This team right now, I don't trust their stability. They have there's nothing consistent with this team. I would be alarmed, man, because they have one of the top 3 hardest schedules in the NFL. And honestly, man, they can't stop nobody. And when you can't stop nobody on defense and you can't win a shootout, already that's alarming.
Yeah.
So that's why I give them a 10.
I saw a graph, like a mathematical statistic percentage based like solely on like strength of schedule based on what we've seen for the first 2 weeks and how they've played, etc., that had Baltimore with less percentage of a shot to make the playoffs than the Carolina Panthers. Now, I'm not willing to go that far, but the numbers behind things are also suggesting that Baltimore is in some serious trouble. I think this team battles back. I do believe in the fight. I do believe in Lamar. I do believe in John Harbaugh, in the culture that they have there. And I do believe the defense will figure some things out. Again, all that turnover, it's going to take a little bit to get going. And the NFL gave them no favors with, 4 of their first 5 games being against great quarterbacks, or good if you want to call Dak not great, whatever you want to say there. But really good passing offenses for a secondary that had a lot of turnover in it. The team is missing Patrick Queen. You could see what a big difference he makes for your Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, he comes in and that defense looks like it might be top 3 in the NFL. Meanwhile, the Baltimore Ravens are struggling right now defensively in a bad way. But, I think they battle back. And I think the same way for Cincinnati that I was like, well, at least the Ravens are 0-2. For the Ravens, at least the Bengals are 0-2. At least they know Pittsburgh's got that tough schedule, and they know the Browns are the Browns. Like, it's not unrecoverable by any means, but there's a lot of clear signs as to why Baltimore should be concerned right now.
Yeah, but the Ravens also do have the hardest schedule in their division. So, I mean, that is true. I just want to see how this kind of is going to affect Lamar's legacy, because you win MVP and then possibly miss the playoffs next year.
Yeah, if he stays healthy and they miss the playoffs, that's a bad look.
Yeah, and to miss the playoffs in the smack prime after you've already won 2 MVPs, now you're just now really, really entering the prime of your career, and you miss the playoffs. How are we going to look at Lamar Jackson? How are we going to look at their head coach now? I know this sounds crazy, but could he be on the hot seat? Who knows how this season ends?
Definitely not on the hot seat, in my opinion.
Who knows how this season can? Who knows, man?
Yeah, the hot seat's a little far for me, but let's move forward to the Rams. This is a team that I'm at a full 10 out of 10 concern on.
Really?
So the Rams are a very top-heavy team, and they now are out Cooper Kupp. They're out Puka Nacua. They're out 3 offensive linemen, and Matt Stafford's injury prone. You're sending him out there with no protection, no weapons that have any history of getting open consistently, a very young defense that needed a good offense in front of it. And Kyren Williams, how's he going to be able to run the ball with that offensive line missing? I just watched the Arizona Cardinals bully this Rams team without Cooper Kupp for an entire half. And the Cardinals, while I think they're fun, and while I think they could perhaps be a 7-6 seed in the playoffs and sneak in there if Kyler really plays well this year, that's not a great team. Now this week they have to play San Francisco. San Francisco's out McCaffrey and out Debo, and Vegas has them favored by 7. There's a reason for that. Vegas is firing the panic alarms.
They should be favored by more with all the people that's out for the Rams on the offensive side of the ball. You would think.
I just don't know how the Rams are going to score more than 20 points in a game, and with that young defense, when they play good teams, I don't know how they don't let up 20 or more points as well. So that's why I'm at a 10. Where are you at on the Rams panic meter wise?
Honestly, a 4, man, a 3 or 4. I'm gonna say 3.5, because I look at it this way: Aaron Donald retired. What was that pass rush really going to look like? We already know their defense is a little bit vulnerable. So what were the real expectations going into this season? Would anybody really be shocked if they missed the playoffs? Be honest. With an old Matt Stafford, we don't know what Cooper Kupp was going to look like, even though week 1 he went absolutely nuts. But honestly, what were the real true expectations? Maybe they get in as a 5th seed. I don't know what their true expectations were. You can argue that all these starters getting hurt was the best thing to happen to the Los Angeles Rams at this point in time, because the rumors have it that they were planning on drafting a quarterback in this year's draft. Rumors, and now they're just going to get a higher draft pick. Now maybe this can jumpstart this rebuild that they said they've been kind of thinking about doing ever since Aaron Donald retired. So you can argue that this is the best thing that could happen for the Rams, man. They already didn't have that high expectations. They were always a threat to beat these teams if they matched up with them in the playoffs, of course. But honestly, I'm just not worried about this team because I think this is a good thing for the Rams, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I guess that speaks to just the difference in expectations because I genuinely I saw other people say this too. I believe that the Rams healthy could have made the Super Bowl. I really did. I
Oh,
really
that's
thought
crazy.
that
Without Aaron Donald?
I thought that the offense was high powered enough when healthy, and we only got to see about a quarter of it. So I'm not going to take a victory lap, but they looked pretty good on that first drive versus Detroit. Like they were moving the ball pretty well. They got held up in the red zone, but I do think that the offense with Cooper Kupp, with Puka Nacua, with Kyron Williams, with Stafford behind a really good offensive line that was set to be improved, had enough firepower, and that maybe they don't win the NFC West and they don't win the 17, 18 week marathon of the regular season. But I thought that they were a team that could come in to the playoffs, like you said, as a fifth seed and make some noise. They could go into Atlanta, go in Tampa and steal that game against the NFC South. They could then, go up against the 49ers, so they've played twice that year and beat them, and then they could go to Detroit or go to Philly and win that game and get in the Super Bowl. Like I believe that the path was there for them, so that's why my concern's just higher than yours. And like you said, if you're going to be bad, you want to be really bad. Because if you're going to be really bad, you could go get a new Georgia quarterback in Carson Beck, if that's who you like. Shador Sanders, if that's where you're at. The kid at Miami, what's it, Cam Rising?
Cam Ward. Cam Rising's on Utah.
Yeah, one of the two Cams. Sure, take whichever one you want there. Cam Ward looks like a freak at Miami. He's real good. But
he's the most nonchalant football player I've ever seen, besides Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, he is a relaxed guy, but like you said, you'd rather be really, really bad if you're going to be bad. Speaking of really, really bad, the Jacksonville Jaguars, this segment right here is called the AFC South because we got 3 AFC South teams in a row. I feel really good about my Texans pick to win the division as they're 2-0 and the rest of the division's 0-6.
Yeah.
Not that was a crazy prediction, but, it was fun, popular to pick the Jags or the Colts. And we're here with the Jaguars, man. Trevor Lawrence gets his extension this offseason. The guy's making $55 million a year. The Jaguars start off the year 0-2 against the Dolphins and the Browns. 2 very winnable games. And you look at this Jags team and you start to think, what the hell? A panic level for the team as a whole, I think I would say like a 6. Because, again, I viewed their expectations similarly to how you viewed the Rams. Would I have been shocked if they missed the playoffs? No. Do I think that they were going to win the division? Not really. They were a fringe wild card team for me. If I'm Doug Peterson, my panic meter's about a 10 because that seat's got to be real hot right now.
Yeah, really hot, man. They're in trouble, bro.
Where are you at on this panic meter?
I'm gonna give them an 8. And I know that they lost some very important pieces on the offensive side of the ball, but you just extended Trevor Lawrence, man, and their situational offense isn't horrible. The situational offense is not horrible. There's a lot of
it was horrible in the first half.
Yeah, it's been horrible really for the most part of the season. I like how they're giving Tank Bigsby, their backup running back, a little bit more carries.
He got hurt in that game though.
Yeah.
On paper, the offense isn't terrible. On the field, they are.
Exactly. And they don't have the worst situation. And honestly, I was questioning Trevor Lawrence's ability to elevate his team. And now I know the answer, I feel like, man. Maybe it's the coaching because we've seen what good coaching can do. In New Orleans, we've seen what good coaching can do in other places. The Raiders are beating very good teams. But honestly, it might be the coaching. I don't know what it is. This team definitely does not have an identity. They need to get that figured out. They need new coaching in that building, man, because you don't want to waste away a quarterback's prime after you just give him an extension. This is win now mode, man. You got to win now, man. You're gonna pay this dude $55 million a year.
This feels like a prime landing spot for Ben Johnson or Clint Kubiak post this season for sure.
Yeah. Clint Kubiak, man, get him in there.
Yeah, he's been great for New Orleans, but for Jacksonville, I saw a really funny stat, man, and it's so bad. And I'm a big Trevor guy. Anybody that's new. I love Trevor. The Detroit Lions punter had more passing yards than him in the first half this past weekend.
That's embarrassing.
Because they went for it on a 4th and whatever, and he had an 18-yard completion, and Trevor Lawrence had 16 passing yards in the first half. It has been mediocre And that's nicely putting it. It's crazy because through 2.5 quarters versus Miami, Jacksonville looked like a good team and looked like a team that could compete with Houston for the division.
Yeah.
And they're about to go up 24-7, and Travis Etienne fumbles the football. Tyreek Hill gets an 80-yard touchdown like 2 plays later, and that game's all she wrote. And you think, wow, that is Jacksonville's 2023 season all in one game. And then you think, okay, really bad luck led to them losing Miami. They should be able to beat Cleveland. Dallas just made them look like a joke. And then Cleveland begging them to win the game almost. And Jacksonville just couldn't do it. They're 0-2 since 2021 when the NFL expanded to 17 games. There's been 21 teams that have started off 0-2. Only 3 of them have made the playoffs. So you got about
0-2? Wow.
So you have a 1-7 shot. There's 9 teams here. So, when you talk about the teams that make the playoffs, one of these teams will probably make the playoffs. Maybe 2. Jacksonville doesn't even feel like they're in the conversation to be the second team, let alone the first.
Honestly, they might have. Man, Nick Wright said something on his podcast last week. He said that the Jaguars just keep finding different ways to lose games. And honestly, when you watch them play, like even if they have like a 10-point lead, you're like, man, how could they lose this game? Like you're just formulating ways in your head. And you would think, man, after that playoff win a couple years ago against the Chargers, everybody thought it was trending up. Most people, I think I had
started 8-3. It was
exactly, but then again, like it was 8-3, and they were a complete team. It seemed like they had an identity. They were moving the ball. Their defense was a very good defense, middle of the pack defense. But now I just don't know what happened. The personnel hasn't changed that much drastically.
And now Monday they travel to Buffalo, and a better beware. I will say that a 2-0 team versus an 0-2 team is underdogs have been covering. And you talk about desperate. The Jacksonville Jaguars will be desperate on Monday. Another team that's also desperate in the AFC South is the Indianapolis Colts. They're 0-2. This was kind of my buyer beware of the Anthony Richardson hype. This guy's raw. This is his rookie season. And what was his big concern? His level as a passer and turning the ball over. 3 interceptions versus the Green Bay Packers. The Packers ran the ball. It felt like 50 times in that game, and you lose 16-10 with Malik Willis as the opposing team's starting quarterback. That's a winnable game for the Colts, and that's a game that they need to have if they're going to make the playoffs in a competitive AFC, and they drop the ball, and that's what's going to happen with this young team. So my panic meter is about a 5 out of 10 because, again, these are growing pains that I expected to see coming. But Colts fans that thought this was their year they were going to compete with Houston, I mean, their panic meter's got to be at a 10.
Yeah.
Where are you at on the Colts panic meter-wise?
I'm going to give them a solid 5. I agree with you on the 5. Anthony Richardson, man, like I didn't know he was that inaccurate of a thrower, man. You complete 9 passes in the game in week 1 and throw for over 200 and some yards. His arm strength is probably top tier. He probably has more arm strength than Josh Allen. Honestly, man, you seen that throw in week 1? That was insane.
70 yards falling back, having somebody hit you. Yeah, like his power and strength is there. His accuracy and decision making is not
at all. And like you just got to think, you have a top 5 running back in the NFL. You can still be competitive, man. You got to, like you said, this is Anthony Richardson's rookie year, basically. You have to limit him like the Green Bay Packers are doing with Malik Willis. You have to limit him like they were doing Brock Purdy when he first started. You had to limit him like with several quarterbacks when they're just getting their feet wet in the NFL, man. And it's not like that would be a problem. You have Jonathan freaking Taylor on your team and a very formidable offensive line. I mean, that defense is definitely a little bit shaky to say the least, but you can still be a competitive team. And honestly,
you should win a game where your defense holds the opponent to 16 points, though.
100%, especially with that run game that you have. But yeah, I just think now you see what Anthony Richardson is really. You've seen that he's just taking a little bit too many chances. You just got to limit him, man. Like you just got to start to limit him, man. And honestly, he can grow from there. You still got very good weapons. You still have very good weapons on this team.
For sure.
So
And
you can be
I do
competitive.
think he will grow, and I do think Shane Steichen will find better ways to call this offense. But when we had talked about the Colts, and I had said 9-8 or 10-7, and people thought this team's going to win more games than that, this team should win more games than that. This is why I was pumping the brakes, because while no, I don't think Gardner Minshew is better than Anthony Richardson. I think he's a better thrower of the football. I
And
think
decision maker.
and decision maker, and a guy who's been around the league for a minute. I think there is a higher floor with him. I think when Anthony Richardson is bad, it's going to be like this. It's going to be bad. You're going to feel like your offense really, really sucks. And that's just what's going to happen. Gardner Minshew led a comeback in Baltimore against the Ravens. Anthony Richardson couldn't put up more than 10 points against the Packers.
Yeah.
So that's where that's at. And then lastly in this AFC South, the Tennessee Titans. My panic meter for them is so interesting because I'm going to say an 8 because they won't win games with Will Levis at quarterback.
He's horrible.
The roster outside of him is great. It's phenomenal. I think the offensive line is very serviceable. I like the weapons in Pollard, Hopkins, Ridley, Chiggy, Tajay Spears, and that defense is mean. That defense has a top 5 secondary in the NFL. And Will Levis, you talked about Nick Wright saying the Jags find new ways to lose. Will Levis is finding new ways to turn the ball over every single week at this point. He is just a terrible decision maker. Like, I don't mean to be mean, but the guy is a moron when he has the football.
Horrible. It's so bad. Like, I wanted to say he reminds me like a rookie Josh Allen, but dude, Josh Allen wasn't like falling over trying to shove the ball 10 yards for a first, like right into the hands of the defense. Like, they do find different ways to lose all the time, man. But honestly, I want to give this team, I want to give them like a 4 because this is an experiment with Will Levis. This was like, what Brock Purdy was on the Trey Lance situation. Like, okay, we're going to see what this guy has. But I don't think Will Levis was going to be their plans of the future. They just wanted to see what they had. The backing up Ryan Tannehill last year, basically.
You say that, but they made moves this offseason to win now.
They did, but honestly.
And now they can't win now because the quarterback stinks.
Yeah, that is true. And the couple games he did play last year showed a little bit of promise. But it's easy to say now that we know that he's trash. Honestly, it is easy to say now. But honestly, they position themselves very good for the future, man, regardless of what happens this season. Like, best case scenario this season, best case scenario, 10-7, first round exit, wild card exit.
Does Levis turn it around? Like, I almost
Impossible.
think best case scenario is you bring Tannehill back in the building. Honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, Tannehill led some good Titan teams to 13 wins.
Yeah, that is true. And
I just listen, it's early in the season, so they're going to give Levis time. And if somebody could fix his brain, great, because then they'll be a good team. In my opinion, if Will Levis could just be a middle-of-the-road quarterback, this is the second best team in the AFC South, and they're a team that week 1 of the playoffs I think could upset a team. If Will Levis was just Geno Smith or Kirk Cousins.
Nah, I can't see it, man. I've seen the turnovers, and he has some.
If he was that, I'm not saying he's going to become that, but if they could get him to that.
Yeah, he has the most growing to do out of any quarterback that I've seen, honestly.
Well, we got 3 teams coming up who.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Man, you just watch him play, and you're like, man, there could be nobody worse than that. I swear to you, man.
Poor Titans fans. We'll stop bullying them. Let's talk about the Denver Broncos. My panic meter here is a 2. This is just not. This is a team who was like maybe hoping to be frisky if the AFC West wasn't good, and it turns out the Chargers and the Raiders are better teams than we expected. Like, any Broncos fan who had high expectations for this season and is disappointed at what they're seeing, I feel like you set yourself up for failure. Bo Nix was the 6th quarterback taken in this rookie draft class for a reason. He is more of a game manager type guy. You can win games with him, but you need to have good to great offensive talent around him. They have Cortland Sutton and a bunch of, mid-level guys at best. Cortland Sutton should be a 2 on a really good team.
Yeah.
And Greg Dulcich this past week against Pittsburgh. I don't know how closely you were watching your Steelers game with that Chiefs-Bengals game on. Greg Dulcich sold Bo Nix time after time. He had like 3 easy drops. It was bad. So this isn't a anti-Bo Nix or an anti-Sean Payton thing. The team's just not ready. The roster was nowhere close to being ready to be a playoff team. They are eating the Russell Wilson money this season. It was, let's see how Nix can grow, get them ready for next year. That's kind of how I felt about the team going into the year, and that's kind of what they're doing. Bo Nix is at least not Will Levis. Like, he's not, like, he is showing that he'll throw it to who's open if they're open. And he relies on them to make plays. Like, I haven't watched this game and been like, wow, Bo Nix is a real moron.
Yeah.
So what I have with Will Levis.
Yeah, I got it. You said you put them at a 2?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a little worrying that none of these younger guys that you picked up are really stepping up to the plate through 2 weeks, but there's still plenty of time for a Troy Franklin to do something.
Oh, I forgot he was even on the team, honestly. Damn. I forgot he was on the team. But my panic meter, I would say, is at a 2 also, because, man, people were saying this team was lucky to win 5 games this year. You look at the roster, and it's just like, man, let's see what Bo Nix, what he can do, man. And honestly, he's showed rookie mistakes, but he hasn't been horrible. He's shown, like, he just forced a couple, like that Steeler game, he forced like a throw or 2. But one of those picks was near the end of the game, desperation. And another one of the throws was like, you know, just a rookie thinking he can make a throw that he just couldn't make. So, honestly, I don't really have that many problems with Bo Nix. I still think he can be the quarterback of the future. I just question that the Broncos' inability to get their playmakers the ball, man. Cortland Sutton was a no-show in the Steelers game. I want to see Javonte Williams a little bit more in the passing game. I want to see this team. You don't have that many playmakers. You might as well try and get them the ball. I know they're getting double covered out there, and it makes the offense a little bit more predictable. But, you know, I just want to see the coaching scheme a few more different ways to get their playmakers the ball a little bit. But for the most part, nobody was expecting nothing from this team this year.
Yeah, they're certainly just kind of about what we thought that they would be. Same goes for the New York Giants for me. I think they fall in the same group. My panic meter on them is about a 3, maybe a little bit higher, just because there's, you know, they do have to go find their new quarterback this offseason.
Yeah.
Through 2 games, you know, Daniel Jones had his opportunity this year to prove all the haters wrong, wrote him off, ain't right back moment, and we were correct to write him off. To lose a game where the opposing team doesn't score a single touchdown and you score 3 is crazy. That is just odd. But it's week 2, and you saw Malik Neighbors as the real deal. Like, if I'm a Giants fan, the D-line's great, and Malik Neighbors is great.
Yeah.
Check and check. That's what I wanted to see this year. Now, I think that they might make a mistake and move off of Brian Daboll. I don't think they should do that. They should not. He is a really, really good coach. And as an Eagles fan, if they fire Daboll, I'll be happy. I'll be thrilled. I'll be like, good. Get him out of here. Bring him to Philly.
That would be crazy.
Let him come to Philly too. Him and Saquon both. We'll take them both. We'll take the 2 good aspects of the New York Giants. You guys have the rest.
That'd be incredible.
But no, I think that Daboll should get the opportunity to get his own quarterback. We saw what a guy like Daboll did with Josh Allen when he got his own quarterback, right? Now we talk about Josh Allen as a top 2-3 quarterback in the league. And it's not to say Brian Daboll made him, but that was under Brian Daboll. You got to at least give Daboll a shot, whether it's Cam Ward, you know, Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Shador Sanders, whichever one of these guys that he wants out of this draft class, you give him the opportunity to get that guy and mold him, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes sense. I give them a 3 because Daniel Jones, this is probably going to be his last season on there, obviously. But I don't know how high you are on the Commanders, man, but this defensive line was supposed to be top tier. The Commanders ran all over them. I think over 200 rushing yards, like all over them. Like, it was crazy. Like, and that's kind of alarming, man, because although that pass rush is supposed to be top 5, that defensive line has a lot of talent on it. I got to question their ability to stop the run, man. For the Commanders, Jaden Daniels wasn't like he wasn't week one. Jaden Daniels taking off 16 times. First read isn't there, I'm running. He wasn't like that.
Yeah.
Like they were handing the ball off to Brian Robinson. Austin Eckler showed flashes of 3 years ago.
Dude,
Austin
Eckler. I mean, that's like a whole other story. But this dude, like last year, like couldn't run, and now this year he is explosive again.
Breakaway speed. Maybe he was hurt. Wasn't saying that.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I feel like the Chargers should have known that in the building, but the Chargers are doing fine. So, I mean, not really at a point to criticize them. For the Giants, I will say, I thought that they were going to be more competitive this year. I thought that this was a team that, with the defensive line, with Dayball, with Neighbors, I thought Daniel Jones could potentially be 2022-esque in terms of serviceability. But without Saquon in that backfield, that's killing them. Because the weapon in the backfield next to Daniel Jones is more helpful than one that he has to get the ball to by throwing it to him.
Singletary, but I mean, Singletary hasn't been atrocious.
Singletary had a good game. It's just, nothing against Singletary, but he's not Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, he's wearing his number though. That's kind of crazy.
wearing his number, but
loud and proud.
Those are two bottom tier teams that we're not super concerned about. The Carolina Panthers, this is like an 11 out of 10 because not that there was high expectations for them, but there just doesn't even appear to be a light at the end of the tunnel, a plan for this team. Like with the Broncos, we said they seem to have the head coach and quarterback. I think they could build a roster around them. The Giants, they got the defensive line, they got a star wide receiver in the making, and they got a good coach. The Carolina Panthers, I still don't know if Dave Canales is good. They're at the point where they're benching Bryce Young for Andy Dalton. The defense is tragic. The offensive line missed me with that. And these rookie weapons, Xavier Legette, he hasn't done anything through 2 weeks. Ja'Tavion Sanders, haven't even heard his name until right now, and I just said it. Jonathan Brooks is still on the pup. And there is just no ownership in GM. It is bad. All around. Yeah. The Panthers are bad. It's got to be an 11 out of 10 just because I don't know where the light at the end of the tunnel is. It's got to be real dark in that tunnel for Panthers fans.
Yeah, man, I gotta agree with you with that. my fucking panic skill is definitely the exact same because, dude, I don't think this is going to be Bryce Young's last game starting this season. I think he's going to start again. I just think they're benching him for a week or two because – and he needs to sit back and learn from a veteran. He's definitely going to start again this season. I have no doubts about that. You just don't give up on a first overall pick in the second season.
That you traded all that draft capital to select.
It's just not going to happen. And for Xavier Legette and Sanders, how are they going to get the ball? Someone has to throw them the ball. You know,
Andy Dalton's willing to throw it. He got nothing to lose.
Yeah,
say that.
Yeah, man, and they had. Everyone thought J.C. Horn was going to be this stud corner. He's been getting routed up the first 2 weeks. He's been getting torched. He had
one interception week 1, I believe. That was, or maybe it was last week, but it was later in the game.
They're attacking him.
Yeah.
You watch the Panthers play, they're attacking J.C. Horn really bad. But honestly, they got Deontay Johnson's going to be there the next couple of years. They don't really have that much of a run game, but you just got to hope that Bryce Young can sit back and learn. In his entire career, 11 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. And I want to say 17 games-ish, 18 games. So
would you say there's a higher % chance that they turn it around and sneak into the playoffs as a 7 seed or that they go winless this year?
Winless for sure. It's easy to say that. They're already 0-2, but I know. No shot.
Winless is tough to do. With that extra game in the NFL, that's tough to pull off.
I don't think it'll be tough for them, especially with a couple injuries. But who knows? I can't see a team that they just beat. I don't know, man. I thought it could be the Commanders, but the Commanders did whatever they wanted to do against them. So the Panthers, they got some reevaluating to do.
I think you mean the Saints.
Oh yeah.
Or the Chargers, one of those two. But both teams did whatever they wanted to do against them and dog-walked them. Yeah. So it's pretty accurate either way. I want to close off the pod with just one additional question here. Of the 9 teams, if only one makes the playoffs, who is it?
It's got to be one of the AFC North teams, man. because it's like,
you're on the hot seat. You got to pick
okay, give me the Bengals.
the
Give me the
Bengals to
Bengals.
pull it off.
Yeah.
I think I would pick Baltimore.
Oh, really?
I do. I think I like what they have a little bit more on paper. If
Okay.
you told me that my panic meter is higher for them because of my expectations for them, but I think they both turn it around and figure it out and make it. And I do think we see two teams, but with Joe Burrow's injury concerns, T. Higgins still not practicing, that run defense as bad as it is. Like, I trust Baltimore to clean up their defense a lot more than I do Cincinnati to clean up theirs.
Yeah.
And I just have to believe with Lamar Jackson's talent, he finds a way to overcome the offensive line, at least enough to make the playoffs. But man, it's definitely not one of those. It's not the Rams, and it's definitely not, maybe one of the AFC South teams just on a statistical probability, because you have to think if one of them turns it around, they get to play the other two.
Yeah, that is true. Honestly, I thought you were going to go with the Bengals because you had some high expectations for Joe Burrow this year. So I thought you were going to go with that.
I thought he was going to win comeback player of the year. And my expectations for that were, because I said he could lead the league in passing out of necessity. Not because I think like that their offense is so good, but because I don't think they could run the ball. Which the take of Joe Burrow might win comeback player of the year over Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers won't throw the ball and Joe Burrow will a ton is fine. Yeah. The Bengals just aren't winning games. But listen, I mean, 1-1, both of those teams played the Chiefs. So, that's a tough start. And then they dropped some win-em games at home. If it happened in the middle of the year, we wouldn't talk about it, but it happened early in the year. And now they're really behind the 8 ball. The Texans, the Bills, and the Chiefs have a lot better shot to become the 1 seed in the AFC than those two teams at this point in time.
How about the Bills, man?
Yeah. We will be back up here this upcoming Monday to talk everything week 3. We're going to be doing 2 full pods a week on the channel. Clips will be going out as well. So if you have not hit that subscribe button, be sure to do so. Check out all of our content in the description, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
Yes, sir.